Dr. Sujin Park sat in her office on Earth, reading the report about her brother's death for the 10th time. The words hadn't changed. Dae-ho Kim, human peacekeeper, killed in action on Kepler 442b. Cause of death: industrial accident during mining dispute. But Sujin knew her brother better than anyone. Dae-ho was careful. He never took unnecessary risks, and the security footage showed something very different from an accident. She watched the video again. 3 alien species who had never worked together in recorded history suddenly united to kill one human. They moved like they had planned it for weeks. This was no accident. Sujin was a xenosociologist. She studied how different species interacted in space. For 10 years, she had researched alien cultures and their relationships with humans. She knew how to find patterns that others missed. She started digging deeper into the files. If Dae-ho's death wasn't an accident, maybe other peacekeepers had died under strange circumstances too. What she found made her sick to her stomach. Peacekeeper Yong-Soo Han died on Rigel 7 6 months ago. The official report said he fell into a lava pit while mediating between 2 mining companies. But witness statements didn't match. Some aliens said he was pushed. Peacekeeper Min-ah Seo died on Vega Station 8 months ago. The report claimed she had an allergic reaction to alien food, but the medical files showed signs of poisoning, not allergies. Sujin kept searching. The pattern became clear. Over the past 5 years, 17 human peacekeepers had died in accidents. All of them were alone when they died. All of them were investigating disputes between alien groups, and in every case, the Galactic Council refused to investigate further. She made copies of everything and called her friend at the Global News Network. "I need to talk to someone about a story. A big story about our peacekeepers." The news broke 3 days later. Peacekeepers murdered, Earth demands answers, spread across every human colony in known space. The footage of Dae-ho's death played on every screen. People saw 3 alien species working together to kill a human who had only tried to help them. On Mars, workers stopped mining and gathered in the main plaza. On Luna, families held candlelight vigils for the dead peacekeepers. On Titan, the Military Veterans Association called for immediate action. But the strongest reaction came from an unexpected place. General Taemin Lee had been retired for 15 years. He lived quietly on a farm in Korea, growing vegetables and trying to forget the wars he had fought. When he saw the news about the peacekeepers, something woke up inside him that had been sleeping for years. Taemin called his old military contacts. Within hours, veterans from across human space were coming out of retirement. Soldiers who had fought in the expansion wars 20 years ago suddenly remembered why they had joined the military in the first place. "They killed our peacekeepers," Taemin said in a video message that spread across the human worlds. "They killed the best of us. The ones who went out there to help others and keep the peace. If they think humans will just accept this, they don't know us very well." President Hee-won Kang watched the growing protests from her office in Seoul. Every day, more people gathered outside government buildings. They carried pictures of the dead peacekeepers, and signs that read "Remember Dae-ho Kim" and "Justice for our fallen." The Galactic Council sent a message to Earth. The deaths of human peacekeepers were unfortunate accidents. Earth should not overreact to these isolated incidents. We suggest sending replacement peacekeepers and moving forward. President Kang showed the message to her advisors. Admiral Bo-ram Choi, head of Earth's Space Defense Force, slammed her fist on the table. Isolated incidents. 17 murders is not isolated. It's a pattern. They're hunting our people. What do you recommend? President Kang asked. "Give me 6 months, Admiral Choi said. "Let me wake up the fleet. If they want to see what happens when you kill human peacekeepers, I'll show them." Defense Minister Woo Jin-nam nodded. "The shipyards on Titan can start building again. We still have the plans for the old Dreadnought-class warships." President Kang looked out her window at the protesters below. Signs reading "They killed our hope" and "No more fallen peacekeepers" filled the streets as far as she could see. "Do it quietly," she said. "Let them think we're being reasonable while we prepare. And activate Protocol 7. Protocol 7 had been written after the expansion wars but never used. It was humanity's plan for total mobilization in case of existential threat. Every human colony, every space station, every mining operation would contribute to the war effort. Sujin received a call that evening. "Dr. Park, this is President Kang's office. She would like to speak with you about your research." In the presidential office, Sujin laid out everything she had found. "It's not random," she explained. "Someone is coordinating these attacks. The timing, the methods, the cover-ups, and it's all planned." "Who would want to eliminate human peacekeepers?" President Kang asked. "Someone who doesn't want peace," Sujin replied. "Someone who benefits from chaos and conflict. Our peacekeepers were making the galaxy more stable. That hurt someone's business or political plans." President Kang studied the files. "Will you help us? We'll need someone who understands alien psychology when we respond to this." Sujin thought about her brother. Daeho had believed in peace. He had died trying to help aliens solve their problems peacefully, but sometimes peace had to be enforced. "What kind of response are you planning?" she asked. "The kind that makes sure no one ever kills a human peacekeeper again," Admiral Choi said. 3 months later, the first new warships rolled out of the Titan shipyards. Veterans came out of retirement to crew them. Young people enlisted in record numbers. The slogan, "Remember the Peacekeepers," was painted on every ship's hull. Sujin stood in the Global Assembly and gave a speech that was broadcast to every human world. "My brother Daeho Kim died believing the galaxy could be a better place. He thought different species could work together in peace. They murdered him for that belief. They murdered 16 other peacekeepers for the same reason." The assembly hall was completely silent. If they want to see what humans do when our peacekeepers are killed, they're about to learn. We don't start wars. But when someone starts a war with us by murdering our people, we finish it. The applause lasted for 10 minutes. Outside, the protests had turned into something else. No longer were people asking for justice. They were demanding war. The Galactic Council sent another message to Earth. Humans are not significant enough in galactic politics to make demands. Accept the loss of your peacekeepers and move on. President Kang read the message to her war cabinet. General Lee, now back in uniform, smiled for the first time in years. "I think it's time to show them exactly how significant we are." In space, hidden beyond the outer planets, humanity's war fleet was gathering. Ships that had been mothballed for decades were being brought back to life. New weapons were being installed. And on every ship in every ready room hung a picture of Peacekeeper Daeho Kim with the words, "This is why we fight." 6 months after Daeho Kim's murder, Admiral Boram Choi stood on the bridge of the newly rebuilt dreadnought Earth's Vengeance. Around her, the largest human war fleet in history was taking shape in the dark space beyond Pluto. The fleet was massive. 2,847 warships of every class filled the void. Ancient battleships that had fought in the expansion wars floated next to brand new destroyers fresh from the shipyards. Carriers loaded with fighter craft, siege platforms designed to break planetary defenses, supply ships to keep the fleet running. Every ship had been built or rebuilt in secret. The outer colonies had worked day and night to produce materials. Mining stations had increased output by 300%. Shipyards on Titan, Mars, and Luna had operated around the clock. Fleet Admiral Wu Jin Nam approached Admiral Choi. "The final squadrons are in position. All ships report ready for combat operations." Admiral Choi nodded. "How long can we maintain this force in active deployment?" 2 years of full combat operations. 5 years if we're careful with supplies, Admiral Nam replied. "The home colonies are still sending resources. Every human in space wants to support this mission." On Titan, Dr. Chang Ho Yoon worked in his underground research facility. For 20 years, he had been developing weapon systems that Earth hoped it would never need to use. Now those weapons were being installed on ships throughout the fleet. His newest creation was called the Terror Protocol. It wasn't designed just to kill enemies, it was designed to make them afraid. Sonic weapons that could drive alien nervous systems into panic. Lights that flashed in patterns that caused seizures in most alien species. Chemical compounds that created overwhelming fear responses. War isn't just about destroying the enemy, Dr. Yoon explained to his team. It's about breaking their will to fight. If we can make them surrender without destroying their worlds, fewer beings die overall. His assistant looked uncomfortable. "Sir, some of these weapons seem designed to cause suffering rather than quick death." Dr. Yoon paused his work. "A quick death is merciful. But mercy didn't save Daeho Kim or the other peacekeepers. Sometimes the most merciful thing you can do is make your enemies so afraid that they never want to fight again." On Earth, Captain Miso Jung reviewed intelligence reports in her office deep beneath Seoul. For 15 years, she had been running a network of human agents embedded in alien governments. Diplomats, traders, researchers, humans who had spent years learning alien languages and customs. The intelligence they provided was staggering. Ship movements, military capabilities, political tensions, trade routes, everything humanity needed to know about their potential enemies. The Vexari have 12 fleet bases, reported Agent Kim Hosiok from Vexari Space. Their ships are fast but lightly armored. They rely on swarm tactics and bioweapons. Nethros military doctrine focuses on defensive formations, came word from Agent Park Ji-woo on the Crystal Worlds. They use harmonic weapons that can shatter most materials, but they're vulnerable to sonic disruption. The Kalari have no permanent military installations, Agent Lee Yoon-ji reported from the gas giant systems. They form temporary fleet concentrations when needed. Their ships can phase in and out of normal space. Captain Young compiled all the information into battle plans. Every alien military was strong in some ways and weak in others. Humanity would exploit those weaknesses. But the intelligence revealed something else, something that made the entire human command structure angry. The murders of human peacekeepers had been ordered by the Galactic Council itself. The Council wanted to remove human influence from frontier regions so their member species could expand without interference. They didn't just allow our peacekeepers to be killed. Captain Young reported to President Kang. They ordered it. This was genocide. They're trying to wipe out humanity's presence in space, one peacekeeper at a time. President Kang read the intelligence files with growing rage. 17 peacekeepers murdered on direct orders from the beings who were supposed to maintain galactic law and order. The Council had used humanity's desire for peace against them. Dr. Sujin Park worked with military psychologists to understand alien thinking. She had left her university position to help plan humanity's response. Every day she studied reports about alien cultures and their weaknesses. The Vexari respect only strength, she explained to the war planners. They see compromise as weakness. If we show mercy, they'll interpret it as an invitation to attack again. The Nethros value harmony above all else, she continued. Disrupting their ability to communicate with each other will cause panic and confusion. The Kalari are nomadic. They have no concept of permanent loss because they can always move somewhere else. We need to show them that nowhere in the galaxy is safe if they oppose us. General Taemin Lee trained the ground forces on secret bases throughout the solar system. 1 million Marines, all volunteers, all angry about the murdered peacekeepers. They had been drilling in simulated alien environments for months. We're not conquering planets, General Lee told his officers. We're sending a message. Every alien in the galaxy needs to understand what happens when you kill a human peacekeeper. The training was brutal. Marines learned to fight in the insect tunnels of Vexari worlds, the crystal cities of the Nethros, and the gas storms of Kalari space. They practiced urban combat, shipboarding, and hostage rescue. But most importantly, they learned restraint. We kill only those who killed our people, General Lee repeated daily. This is about justice, not genocide. We are still the peacekeepers even when we're making war. As the months passed, the human fleet grew stronger. New ships arrived weekly. Weapons systems were tested and improved. Intelligence reports provided detailed maps of alien worlds. But keeping such a massive military operation secret was becoming impossible. Alien traders reported unusual activity in human space. Diplomatic missions noticed that human officials seemed distracted and tense. President Kang knew they were running out of time before the aliens discovered their preparations. She decided to give the Galactic Council one last chance to avoid war. The message was simple and direct. The murders of human peacekeepers were acts of war against Earth and all human colonies. Surrender those responsible for trial under human law. You have 30 days to comply. The Galactic Council's response came within hours. Humans are a minor species with no authority to make demands of the Council. Your peacekeepers died in the normal course of frontier operations. No further investigation is warranted. President Kang showed the response to her military commanders. Admiral Choi smiled grimly. They still don't understand what they've done. They killed 17 peacekeepers and think we'll just accept it. How long until the fleet is ready to move? President Kang asked. We can begin operations immediately, Admiral Choi replied. Every ship is armed and supplied. Every Marine is trained and ready. All intelligence assets are in position. General Lee stood up from the conference table. Ma'am, I have 1 million Marines who have been waiting 6 months to avenge our peacekeepers. Give us the word. President Kang looked around the room at her military leaders. These were good people who had dedicated their lives to protecting humanity. They had tried diplomacy. They had offered the aliens multiple chances to solve this peacefully. "The word is given," she said quietly. "Operation Remember Daeho begins immediately." In space, the human war fleet began to move. 2,847 ships carrying the fury of an entire species set course for the Vexari homeworld. The age of human peacekeepers begging for alien cooperation was over. The age of human peacekeepers backed by overwhelming force was about to begin. The Vexari homeworld of Kronthak had never seen anything like it. One moment, empty space surrounded their planet. The next moment, 2,800 human warships appeared as if from nowhere, arranged in perfect battle formation. Admiral Boram Choi stood on the bridge of Earth's vengeance and looked at the insect world below. Cities built like giant hives covered the planet's surface. Billions of Vexari lived in those tunnels and chambers. Most of them had nothing to do with the murder of Peacekeeper Daeho Kim, but some of them did. "Open a channel to all frequencies," Admiral Choi ordered. "All Vexari ships, all ground stations, everything that can receive a signal." The communications officer nodded. "Channel open, Admiral." Admiral Choi's voice carried across Vexari space with cold authority. "This is Admiral Boram Choi of the Earth Defense Force. You killed our peacekeeper. Now you answer to us." On the planet below, Vexari Queen Veltar watched the human ships through her compound eyes. She had lived for 300 years and had never seen so many warships in one place. Her military advisors clicked their mandibles nervously. "How many ships?" she asked. "Our sensors count 2,847 vessels," her admiral replied. "We have 400 ships in this system. They outnumber us 7-1. Queen Veltar had been one of the aliens who voted to eliminate human peacekeepers. The humans were making the galaxy too peaceful, too stable. Wars meant profits for weapons dealers and territory for expanding species. Peace was bad for business. Now she was beginning to understand that killing humans might have been a mistake. "Broadcast a message to the human fleet," she ordered. "Tell them this is Vexari space. They have no authority here." The human response came immediately, not words but actions. Dr. Chang Ho Yun's terror protocol weapons activated across the human fleet. Sonic cannons fired beams of sound directly into the Vexari hive cities. The frequencies were carefully chosen to cause maximum psychological damage to insect nervous systems. The sound was like the death screams of 1,000,000 Vexari larvae. It triggered every fear response the species had developed over millions of years of evolution. Adult Vexari collapsed in panic attacks. Soldiers dropped their weapons and huddled in corners. Even the queen herself felt terror clawing at her mind. But the humans weren't trying to kill anyone yet. The sonic weapons caused no permanent damage, just overwhelming, paralyzing fear. "Make it stop," Queen Veltar screamed. "Make the terrible sound stop." Admiral Choi's voice came over the communications again. "We want 3 specific Vexari, the ones who murdered Peacekeeper Daeho Kim. Give them to us and the sound stops." Queen Veltar knew exactly who the humans wanted. Grickstar and his 2 lieutenants were in the royal hive, hiding behind the Queen's personal guards. They had bragged about killing the human peacekeeper, describing how they had torn him apart while he tried to make peace. "I can't give you members of my own species," the Queen replied. The sonic weapons increased in volume. Now even the Queen's elite guards were writhing on the ground, overcome by terror. The sound penetrated deep into the hive cities, sending millions of Vexari into panic attacks. Captain Miso Jung monitored alien communications across the galaxy. Every species with faster-than-light communication was watching the assault on Kronthak. She made sure they all received high-quality video feeds of the human attack. "Let them see what happens when you kill our peacekeepers," she told her intelligence team. "This is a lesson for the entire galaxy." The Nethros crystal cities on 3 different worlds were watching. The gaseous Kalari fleet stations received the broadcasts. Even species that had never heard of humans were learning about Earth's response to the murder of its peacekeepers. On Kronthak, General Taemin Lee prepared his ground assault. 100,000 Marines stood ready in their dropships, but the general had very specific orders about what they could and could not do. "We are going to capture 3 Vexari," he told his officers. "Only 3. We will not harm civilians. We will not damage civilian structures. We are peacekeepers even when we're at war." The sonic attack continued for 12 hours. Across Kronthak, Vexari society was collapsing. Workers couldn't function. Soldiers couldn't fight. The Queen's government was paralyzed by species-wide panic attacks. Finally, Queen Veltar broke.
Stop, please stop.
I'll give you the ones you want. Admiral Choi ordered the sonic weapons to cease. The sudden silence across Kronthak was almost as shocking as the sound had been. You have 1 hour to deliver Grixtar and his 2 accomplices to coordinates we're transmitting, Admiral Choi said. After that, we come down and get them ourselves. Queen Veltar's guards dragged the 3 murderers from their hiding places. Grixtar clicked his mandibles defiantly. You can't do this. We are protected by Galactic Council law. The Galactic Council ordered you to kill our Peacekeeper, Queen Veltar replied. Now the Council can explain that to the humans. The 3 Vexari were loaded onto a transport ship and delivered to the human fleet. Admiral Choi watched as they were brought aboard her flagship in shackles designed for insect limbs. But the demonstration wasn't over. Humanity needed to send a clear message to every species in the galaxy. Dr. Soo-Jin Park had identified the most sacred site on Kronthak, the great breeding grounds where new Vexari queens were born. The complex covered hundreds of square kilometers and was guarded by the planet's most elite soldiers. Target the breeding grounds, Admiral Choi ordered. Non-lethal bombardment. I want those structures damaged but not destroyed. Human ships fired precisely controlled energy beams at the sacred complex. Walls cracked. Ceremonial chambers collapsed. The most holy place in Vexari culture was reduced to rubble in minutes. The psychological impact was exactly what Dr. Park had predicted. Vexari across the galaxy watched their most sacred site being destroyed by humans, who could have killed millions but chose instead to make a point. This is what happens when you murder human peacekeepers. Admiral Choi broadcast on all frequencies. We could have destroyed your world. We could have killed your billions. Instead, we took only what we came for. Justice. Queen Veltar watched her sacred breeding grounds burn and finally understood what the humans were doing. This wasn't a war of conquest. This was a war of justice. They had come for specific individuals and were willing to break an entire world to get them. What do you want from us? She asked over the communications channel. Nothing, Admiral Choi replied. We have what we came for. But every species in the galaxy now knows what happens when you kill our people. The human fleet began to withdraw from Kronthak orbit. The 3 Vexari murderers were in custody. The planet's military was in ruins. The Queen's government was shattered. But most importantly, every alien species with long-range communications had watched the entire assault. They had seen human restraint combined with overwhelming force. They had learned that humans would cross the galaxy to protect their own people. Captain Young intercepted communications from across known space. The Nethros Crystal Councils were in emergency session. Kalari fleet commanders were requesting immediate peace talks with Earth. Dozens of species that had never contacted humans were suddenly very interested in establishing diplomatic relations. The message was clear. Humans were no longer the weak peacekeepers who could be murdered without consequences. They were the species that would burn your most sacred sites and break your strongest defenses to protect their own. As the human fleet jumped to hyperspace, Admiral Choi allowed herself a small smile. They had 3 Vexari murderers in custody. More importantly, they had shown the galaxy that the age of weak human peacekeepers was over. The age of human peacekeepers backed by the fury of an entire species had begun. But this was only the beginning. 2 more alien species had participated in Daeho Kim's murder, and humanity intended to collect from all of them. Daeho Kim walked through the dusty streets of New Haven Colony on the planet Kepler 442b. The morning sun cast long shadows between the metal buildings. He wore his blue peacekeeper uniform with pride. The golden earth symbol on his chest caught the light as he moved. 3 different alien races lived in this mining town. The Vexari looked like giant insects with sharp claws and hard shells. They were strong workers but got angry fast. The Nethros were tall crystal beings who glowed softly in the dark. They were quiet and spoke in musical tones. The Kalari were like living clouds of gas that changed colors when they talked. For 2 years, Daeho had kept peace between these 3 groups. They all wanted the same thing, the rare quantum crystals that grew deep in the planet's caves. These crystals made spaceships go faster than light. Everyone needed them. The trouble started early that morning. A Vexari mining crew had been digging in Sector 7. Their drill hit something hard. When they broke through, they found a beautiful crystal garden. The formations looked like frozen music made of light. The Nethros worker, Kyloneth, saw the damage first. His crystal body flashed red with anger. "Sacred place," he sang in his strange voice. "You destroyed our sacred place." The Vexari foreman Grixtar clicked his mandibles. "We dig where the maps say. Not our fault your holy rocks are in the way." Soon more aliens came to see what happened. The Nethros gathered in groups, their bodies pulsing with angry red light. The Vexari formed their own groups, clicking and hissing at each other. Even the peaceful Kalari began to swirl faster, changing from calm blue to worried yellow. Deho got the call on his communicator. "Peacekeeper Kim, we need you at Sector 7, big trouble." He ran through the streets, his boots hitting the metal walkways. People moved out of his way. Human colonists watched from their windows. Everyone knew when the Peacekeeper ran, bad things were happening. At the mining site, Deho saw the crowd. Over 200 aliens faced each other in angry groups. The Vexari had their weapons ready. The Nethros were singing a war song that made the air vibrate. The Kalari had formed a thick wall of gas between them. "Everyone stop," Deho shouted. His voice carried across the open pit. "I'm here to help." "Let's talk about this," Grixtar stepped forward. His compound eyes focused on Deho. "Human, this is not your problem. The rock singers built their temple in our mining area. We have rights too." Kyloneth's crystal body rang like a bell. "The sacred grove has stood here for 1,000 years. Your machines have no respect for holy things." Deho raised his hands. He had done this many times before. "I understand you're both upset. Grixtar, your crew has mining rights in this sector. Kyloneth, your people consider this place sacred. We can find a solution that works for everyone." The Kalari leader Fendra floated closer. Her gas form was now orange with worry. "The human speaks wisdom, but blood may flow if we do not solve this quickly." For 3 hours, Deho worked. He talked to each group separately. He listened to their complaints. He looked at the mining contracts and the Nethros religious texts. Slowly, he began to see a way forward. "Here's what we'll do," he said to the gathered crowd. "The Vexari will stop mining in the damaged area. In exchange, we'll open Sector 9 for mining. It has even better crystal deposits. The Nethros will help move their sacred stones to a new location where they'll be safe. The Kalari will provide transport ships to move everything carefully." The aliens looked at each other. Some nodded. Others seemed uncertain. "This could work," Kyloneth sang softly. "Sector 9 does have good crystals," Grixtar admitted. "We can provide ships," Fendra agreed. Deho smiled. Another crisis solved. He activated his communicator to call Earth Command. "This is Peacekeeper Kim on Kepler 442b, reporting in on the mining dispute." But something was wrong. The aliens weren't walking away like they usually did after he solved their problems. Instead, they were moving closer together. For the first time in colony history, all 3 races stood as one group. "What's happening?" Deho asked. Grixtar's voice was different now, cold. "The Galactic Council has new orders for this sector." "The humans have served their purpose," Kyloneth sang, but his melody was dark. "Your peacekeeping days are over," Fendra whispered. Deho reached for his communicator again. Something was very wrong. These 3 species had never worked together before. They barely tolerated each other. Now they stood united, and he was the outsider. "This is Peacekeeper Kim," he said quickly into his comm device. "The situation is contained. I repeat, the situation is..." The first Vexari bioweapon hit him in the chest. The green acid burned through his uniform. He stumbled backward, trying to understand what was happening. "Why?" he gasped. "Because the galaxy is changing," Grixtar clicked, "and there's no place for human peacekeepers in the new order." The Nethros launched crystal shards that cut deep. The Kalari released toxic gas that burned his lungs. But the worst part wasn't the pain. It was seeing his uniform torn and his Earth symbol covered in alien blood. Deho fell to his knees. Around him, the 3 species that had fought each other for years worked together to kill the one human who had kept them from destroying each other. His last thought was of his sister Sujin back on Earth. He hoped she would understand that he had tried to keep the peace until the very end. 3 days later, a human patrol ship found his body. The aliens had already cleaned up the mining site and gone back to work. They acted like nothing had happened. When the ship's captain asked about Peacekeeper Kim, they all gave the same answer. He died in an accident. Very sad. These things happen in space. But the ship's security cameras told a different story. They showed 3 alien species working together for the first time in their history, working together to murder a human peacekeeper who had only tried to help them live in peace. The captain sent the footage to Earth with shaking hands. He knew that when humanity saw what had been done to Dae-ho Kim, the galaxy would never be the same. 1 year later, Captain Jae-wook-oh walked through the same dusty streets of New Haven Colony where Peacekeeper Dae-ho Kim had died. The buildings looked the same, but everything else had changed. Where once human peacekeepers had worked alone and vulnerable, now Captain O was accompanied by a full security detail. Human Marines in powered armor stood guard at key locations throughout the colony. In orbit above Kepler 442b, 2 human destroyers maintained constant watch. The aliens were different too. Vexari workers clicked respectfully when they saw the human peacekeeper. Nethros sang greeting harmonies in careful, controlled tones. Kalari gas beings swirled into polite formations when humans approached. Fear had taught them manners. Captain O stopped at the memorial that now stood where Dae-ho had been murdered. A simple black stone with golden letters. Peacekeeper Dae-ho Kim, he died for peace, we live for justice. Fresh flowers covered the memorial. Not just from humans, but from aliens too. Vexari left crystallized tree sap. Nethros placed harmonic crystals that played soft melodies. Even Kalari condensed portions of themselves into liquid offerings. They remember, said Sergeant Min Seo-yoon, Captain O's security chief. Every alien in the colony knows what happened here. Captain O nodded. The story of Dae-ho Kim had spread to every world in human space and beyond. Children learned about the Peacekeeper, who tried to help aliens solve their problems peacefully, only to be murdered by the ones he was trying to help. But they also learned what happened next. How humanity had crossed the galaxy to capture his killers. How 3 major alien civilizations had been brought to their knees not through conquest, but through the focused application of overwhelming force. On Earth, Dr. Soo-jin Park served as the first Minister of Alien Affairs under the new galactic government. The old Galactic Council had been dissolved after 48 hours of human pressure. Some species had tried to resist, but when they saw the size of the human fleet surrounding Nexus Prime, they had quickly changed their minds. The new interstellar authority was very different from the old council. Humans held key positions in military command and peacekeeping operations. Other species could participate, but only under human oversight, and only after proving they could be trusted with human lives. President Haiwan Kang had established the Kim Doctrine as the foundation of galactic law. Any attack on human peacekeepers would result in immediate and overwhelming retaliation. Any species that harbored or protected those who harmed human diplomats would face military action. The doctrine was carved in stone at the entrance to every human embassy in the galaxy. They killed a human peacekeeper. Earth's answer was total war. Remember this. Dr. Park often visited Dae-ho's grave in the military cemetery outside Seoul. Her brother had wanted peace, but his death had brought something else. Security through strength. She sometimes wondered what he would think of what humanity had become. I think he would understand, Admiral Bo-ram Choi said during one of their visits. The admiral had retired after the war, but she still wore her uniform when visiting fallen peacekeepers. Would he? Soo-jin asked. We destroyed 3 civilizations to avenge him. We ended the old galactic government. We became the thing we once asked permission from. Admiral Choi looked at the thousands of graves around them. Human soldiers, diplomats, and peacekeepers who had died in service to their species. Your brother died believing the galaxy could be peaceful. We made the galaxy peaceful. The methods were different than he would have chosen, but the result is what he wanted. The trial of Dae-ho's murderers had been broadcast across the galaxy. Grixter and his Vexari accomplices, Kylneth and the Nethros Crystal Guards, Fendra and her Kolari conspirators, all had faced human justice. The sentences were not death, which surprised many alien observers. Instead, the murderers received life imprisonment in specially designed facilities that accommodated their various biologies. The message was clear. Humans valued justice over revenge. But the facilities were on Earth in the Sol system, surrounded by the largest human fleet bases in the galaxy. No rescue would ever be possible. General Tae-min Lee had returned to his farm, but he kept his uniform ready. At age 70, He had become a legend throughout human space, the old soldier who came out of retirement to avenge murdered peacekeepers. Young humans across the galaxy enlisted in the Peacekeeper Corps in record numbers. But these new peacekeepers were different from Deho's generation. They carried weapons. They traveled with military escorts. They had the full backing of humanity's war machine behind every word they spoke. The galaxy was more peaceful now, but it was the peace of the strong imposing order on the weak. Captain O dealt with a minor dispute between Vexari and Nethros miners in Sector 7, the same area where Deho had died. The aliens were arguing over mining rights, but their arguments were careful and respectful. "Honored Peacekeeper," the Vexari foreman said, "we request your judgment in this matter." "Wise human," the Nethros representative sang, "please guide us to harmony." Captain O listened to both sides just as Deho would have done. The solution was simple, a compromise that gave both species access to the crystals they needed. The aliens accepted his decision immediately and without complaint, but as they dispersed, Captain O noticed something Deho probably wouldn't have seen. The aliens weren't cooperating because they trusted him. They were cooperating because they were afraid of what would happen if they didn't. A year ago, these same species had worked together to murder a human peacekeeper. Now they barely dared to raise their voices in his presence. "Is this what peace looks like?" Sergeant Yoon asked as they watched the aliens return to work. Captain O considered the question. Above them, human destroyers moved across the sky like mechanical angels of death. Around them, aliens worked and lived under the protection and authority of human peacekeepers. Across the galaxy, 1,000 human-dominated worlds enjoyed stability and prosperity under the new order. "Maybe," he said, "or maybe this is what justice looks like." That evening, Captain O sent his daily report to Earth Command. New Haven Colony remains peaceful. All disputes resolved without violence. The Kim Memorial received visitors from all 3 major alien species. Situation stable. He didn't mention that the stability came from fear rather than mutual respect. He didn't explain that aliens cooperated because they remembered what happened to the last ones who had killed a human peacekeeper. Some truths were better left unsaid. In the quiet of his quarters that night, Captain O looked out at the stars where human ships patrolled the void. Somewhere out there, on distant worlds, other human peacekeepers were doing what Deho Kim had tried to do, keeping peace between different species, but they were no longer alone and vulnerable. They carried the implicit threat of humanity's terrible swift sword. They spoke with the authority of the species that had shattered 3 civilizations to avenge one murdered peacekeeper. The galaxy was peaceful now. Not the peace Deho Kim had dreamed of, based on mutual understanding and cooperation, but a more practical peace based on the universal understanding that humans protected their own with overwhelming force. O thought about the memorial outside his window, where fresh flowers bloomed daily in memory of a peacekeeper who had died believing the galaxy could be better. Perhaps Deho had been right. Perhaps the galaxy was better now. It was certainly more peaceful, and if that peace was built on the fear of human retaliation, rather than genuine cooperation, well, at least human peacekeepers no longer died alone and forgotten on distant worlds. At least humanity remembered its own, and the galaxy would never forget what happened when they didn't. The Galactic Council chambers on Nexus Prime had never experienced such chaos. Representatives from 200 species filled the Great Hall, their voices creating a cacophony of fear and anger. All of them were talking about the same thing: the human attack on Kronthak Chancellor Zixmore. A tall reptilian being with golden scales called for order. His species had been the Galactic Council's leaders for 500 years. They were used to other races obeying their commands without question. The human assault on Vexari space was an illegal act of aggression, Chancellor Zixmore announced. The Council demands that Earth withdraw its forces immediately and submit to galactic justice. The response came from President Hye-Wan Kang herself, appearing via hologram in the center of the chamber. Her image was larger than life and surrounded by the flags of every human colony. Peacekeeper Deho Kim's murderers will face human justice, President Kang said calmly. Anyone who stands in our way shares their fate. The chamber erupted in shocked clicks, roars, and whistles from dozens of alien species. No one had ever spoken to the Galactic Council like this before. You dare threaten the Council? Chancellor Zixmore demanded. President Kang's hologram turned to face him directly. I'm not threatening anyone. I'm explaining what will happen. Your council ordered the murder of 17 human peacekeepers. We have proof. We have recordings. We have the testimony of the killers we captured on Kronthak. Dr. Soo-Jin Park stood beside the president in the Seoul Command Center, watching the alien reactions on dozens of screens. The terror in their body language was obvious to anyone who understood xenobiology. They're starting to realize what they've done, she told President Kang quietly. For centuries, they've controlled galactic politics through intimidation. Now they're facing a species that can't be intimidated. While the council debated, human fleets were already moving toward their next targets. The Nethros had participated in Daeho's murder, and Admiral Boram Choi intended to collect from them as well. The crystal cities of Samara gleamed like jewels in the light of their blue sun. Nethros had lived in these structures for 10,000 years, growing them from the planet's natural crystal formations. Each city was a work of art that sang in harmonic frequencies when the wind blew through it. Dr. Chang Ho Yoon had studied Nethros physiology for months while preparing for this moment. Their crystalline bodies were beautiful and nearly indestructible, but they had one critical weakness. Their entire nervous system was based on harmonic resonances. The right frequencies could cause them excruciating pain. Remember, Dr. Soo-Jin Park broadcasted to the fleet, "We're not here to destroy the Nethros. We're here to collect the ones who killed our Peacekeeper and show the galaxy what happens when you murder humans." The human fleet appeared around Samara exactly as they had at Kronthak, suddenly and in overwhelming numbers. But this time they didn't announce themselves with words. They announced themselves with song. Human ships began broadcasting carefully crafted harmonic frequencies toward the crystal cities. The sounds were beautiful, like a choir of angels singing in perfect harmony. But to Nethros nervous systems, the frequencies were agony. Every crystal being on the planet felt like their body was being shattered from the inside. They couldn't move, couldn't think, could barely exist as the human songs tore through their consciousness. In the capital city of resonance, High Harmonic Kilneth writhed in his crystal palace. He had been one of the Nethros who helped kill Peacekeeper Kim, using crystal shards to cut the human's body while he lay dying from Vexari bioweapons. Now the Nethros leader understood what the humans were doing. Just as they had used sonic weapons against the Vexari's insect fears, they were using harmonic weapons against Nethros crystal biology. The humans had studied their enemies and found the perfect way to cause suffering without causing death. "Make it stop," Kilneth sang, his voice cracking with pain. "Please make the terrible music stop." Admiral Choi's voice came from every human ship at once. "Give us the Nethros who murdered Peacekeeper Daeho Kim. Give us Kilneth and his crystal guards." Then the song ends. Across the galaxy, alien species watched the assault on Samara through their long-range sensors. Captain Miso Young made sure everyone received clear broadcasts of the human attack. The psychological warfare was working exactly as planned. The Kalari gas giant fleets were watching. Their commanders saw how humans had defeated two major galactic powers in less than a month. Some Kalari leaders were already preparing to surrender their own murderers before the humans came for them. The harmonic attack on Samara continued for 6 days. Unlike the Vexari, who had broken in 12 hours, the Nethros were more stubborn. Their crystal bodies were harder to intimidate than insect psychology, but even crystal beings have limits. When Nethros workers began to crack, literally splitting apart from the harmonic stress, their leaders finally surrendered. High Harmonic Kilneth and 4 other Nethros were delivered to the human fleet in specially designed crystal transport containers. As with the Vexari murderers, they would be taken to Earth for trial, but humanity wasn't finished with their demonstration. Dr. Soo-Jin Park had identified the most sacred Nethros site, the Great Resonance Chamber, where their species first learned to sing in harmony 10,000 years. "Go target the Great Chamber," Admiral Choi ordered. "Controlled demolition. I want it broken, not vaporized." Human demolition charges placed with surgical precision brought down the ancient crystal formations. The chamber that had stood for millennia was reduced to fragments in minutes. The sound of its destruction, like a trillion glass bells breaking at once, was broadcast across the galaxy. Every Nethros in known space heard their most sacred place die. The psychological impact was devastating. A species that had existed for thousands of years suddenly realized they were no longer safe from human justice. The third target was the Kalari gas giant installations in the Helix Nebula. But before the human fleet could reach them, something unexpected happened. A massive Kalari delegation appeared in Earth's solar system under flags of truce. Their leader, Grand Swirl Fendra, had been present at Daeho Kim's murder. Now she came to surrender herself and her accomplices. "We yield to human justice," she announced in her gaseous voice. "We surrender the Kalari who participated in the killing of your Peacekeeper. Please show mercy to our people." General Taemin Lee met the Kalari delegation on Luna Station, the gas beings swirled nervously in their containment suits, clearly terrified of what the humans might do to them. "Why surrender?" General Lee asked. "Because we have seen what happens to those who resist human justice," Fendra replied. "The Vexari are broken. The Nethros are shattered. We are nomads. We can survive the loss of territory. But we cannot survive the kind of war you wage." The Kalari had made a wise choice. Their surrender meant humanity had captured all the direct murderers of Peacekeeper Daeho Kim without having to fight a third campaign. But the real target had always been the Galactic Council itself. Captain Young's intelligence. Agents had gathered overwhelming evidence that the Council had ordered the murders of human peacekeepers. Recorded conversations, written orders, payment records. Everything needed to prove that this had been a coordinated campaign of genocide against human diplomats. President Kang addressed the Galactic Council one final time. "We have proof that your council ordered the systematic murder of human peacekeepers. You will dissolve the current council and submit to an investigation by neutral species. You have 48 hours to comply." Chancellor Zixmore's response was predictably arrogant. "Humans are a minor species. You have no authority to make demands of the galactic government. Your actions against the Vexari and Nethros were illegal. Submit to council judgment or face the consequences." The response came from Admiral Choi, broadcasting from the largest human fleet ever assembled. 3,000 warships now filled the space around Nexus Prime, the council's home station. "The consequences?" Admiral Choi asked. "Chancellor, you ordered the murder of 17 peacekeepers. You tried to genocide the humans who were keeping peace in your galaxy. Now you want to threaten us?" The Admiral's voice carried absolute certainty. "The Galactic Council as it exists today ends now. You can dissolve it yourselves or we'll dissolve it for you." Across known space, alien governments watched the confrontation. Some began withdrawing their support from the Council. Others prepared to defend the galactic government they had supported for centuries. But all of them understood one thing. Humanity had become the most powerful military force in the galaxy. The species that had once begged for permission to keep peace was now dictating terms to the galactic government. The age of human weakness was over. The age of human dominance was about to begin, and it had all started with the murder of one peacekeeper who had only wanted to help aliens live together in peace.